Hi, Steve. This, first off, what led you to part ways with Jeff, and what are you looking for in a new coach?
First off, I apologize for being a few minutes late here. I hope I didn't keep everyone waiting. It just was tied up on a phone call. So anyway, appreciate your patience with me. Helene, I guess ultimately to make a coaching change or to take that decision, I felt, a team fundamentally that we'd kind of, I don't know if even plateaued is the right word, but we'd gotten to a point where, fundamentally with and without the puck, we had regressed. We're at a point now where I felt like, okay, I've got to see, bringing in a new coach, a new coaching staff, can make a difference to get us back on track, to get us going in the right direction. And so ultimately, I guess that is the simplest or biggest reason I make the change.
And what are you looking for in a new coach?
I don't know that I could sit here and say I want specifically this or specifically that. I'm looking for, I don't know really how to answer that, what specifically I'm looking for. Obviously, there are areas of the game we need to improve upon, and I'm hoping a new coach can, a new voice, a new coach, a different approach, maybe a different way of doing things. We can improve the play, our team play, and the play of our players individually, because I think that we're not going to get rid of every single player here. We have some very good players, but they have to improve in a lot of different areas, and I'll be specific with each of them as I meet with them here in the off season. So I don't know that there's a lot of, my experience has been there's different personalities and different ways of coaches being successful. I intend to look at all different, I guess, avenues or different leagues, different backgrounds of coaches. I am not going to restrict myself to any, particular resume in who I determine the next coach will be.
And just one last one. When you took the job now 3 years ago, you described it as an awesome opportunity to rebuild a team. Where do you think you're at?
I think we're at the end of year 3 and the beginning of year 4.
Yeah. Can you delve a little more into it? I mean, you feel like you've...
Again, I do not, I keep asked on where you at in the rebuild, what's the timeline, when you're going to make the playoffs. I wish I could give you definitive answers to those questions. I'm not necessarily trying to be witty or coy or anything like that. It's just like, we've got a draft coming up in 2 months, and I don't even know if we're picking 8th, 1st, 2nd, 9th, or 10th, to let alone tell you, okay, we're going to pick any position for that matter, and that player is going to play on our team, and that's going to project us to finishing in the standings next year. There's just so much uncertainty. And then we have free agency coming up on July 1. I have this beautiful list of great players on there that would be a good fit for our organization. Can I get any of those players? I have no idea at this point. So we're just going to continue with trying to draft well, trying to develop our young players, try to run a good program here in Detroit, and try to run a good program in Grand Rapids, and kind of gradually keep improving. And that's what I'm going to stick with. And hopefully sooner than later, we're a playoff team. And I would love to be able to stand here or sit here and say, hey, here's the exact plan. This is what we're doing. And this is when we're going to be a playoff team, and we're going to win the cup this year. I'd be a fool, an idiot to say that. And I know you don't expect me to say that.
No, absolutely not. Thanks, Steve.
Max Boltman.
Hey, Steve, I'm just curious. Do you feel like, does this in your mind signal that, your expectations though are going up for this team? To make a coaching change, should that be kind of taken that way?
I don't know that my expectations have really changed, Max. Again, we just finished our third year with me as a general manager. I worked with the coaching staff for 3 years. There's been a lot of good things done. but and again, I will, speak publicly about this because Jeff and I and his coaching staff have discussed this. We have struggled defensively. Part of the reason is it personnel? Yes, to be, state the obvious. But we've been unable to, with the group that we've had, specifically in that area, to get better, to get our team to play both individually and collectively a sounder defensive hockey team. And it's been 3 years we've been trying. It hasn't been from a lack of discussion, a lack of effort on our coaching staff's behalf, or trying. We just haven't been able to do it. So I look at this now as, hey, that's an area that's going to have to improve in order to do that. I'm going to bring in a new coach and see if he can't do that with the group that we have. If there'll be some changes on our roster. To what extent, I can't really say that at this point, but there will be changes, and with a new coaching staff coming in with some potential changes, my expectation, I guess, is that we're going to improve. My expectation will be that we improve in that area.
And then I guess personnel wise, it sounds like the blue line may be here, but when you talk about that list of free agents you'd like to target, where do you think, you'd like to add this offseason?
I wouldn't honestly specifically target just the blue line. I think, we've got some decisions to make on our roster in all three, in goal, on defense, and up front. And we'll look at all the different areas that you can improve that, whether it's our younger players in our system taking a next step into the NHL, even for that matter, the trade market, which I hesitate to even say that because I don't foresee there being a real, trade that would make sense, and maybe something will come up. And then it's free agency and try to add to that. But you look at all the forward positions are D, and there's, depending on what extent we go with changes or don't bring players back, there may be more or less, more or fewer spots on the roster to need to address.
And then just two quick things I wanted to clarify. Alex Tanguay and LJ Scarpace, they're remaining on staff now, or you haven't made?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's the new agreement with the Swedish Federation. There's, I think, a new age that players at 24 have to be offered back to their club. Do you see that as a big obstacle, or is that something that you feel like as you start to bring some of these guys over, you'll be able to still do? I don't know if the teams are allowed to kind of sign off, their teams, and they're allowed to kind of sign off on that if they come over, or?
Yeah, I got to, I will have to refresh my recollection and understanding of some of those rules in Europe, because when I'm not using them every day, they go, become a little bit vague. I do not see it as an issue whether we want to bring a player over to play. No, I'm not really concerned about that.
Okay, thank you.
Ansar Khan.
Yeah, Steve, just when you look back at the season as a whole, I mean, things seem to be going fairly well, just past the midway point, and then just things kind of came a little bit off the rails here the last couple of months. Just why do you think that happened? I mean, what turned? I mean, what did you see in the team's play over the last couple of months?
Well, I'll start by saying, if you go back and look at our schedule, and then you look at the teams we were going to play in February and March, and in particular on the road, we recognized that, our record was decent. We were pleased with our record in the first half of the season. But having said that, our record wasn't good against the top teams. We were starting to beat the teams that are, comparable to us, say in the standings or in the rebuilding process or whatnot. We were fairly competitive against them. We did have a tough time with the elite teams, even in the early part of the season. As the season went on, we had, again, Colorado, Tampa, Florida, Toronto, all these games coming back to back to back. So we knew it was going to be a bigger challenge in the second half. So that's part of it. Was it, hey, our team, whether we're not good enough to sustain this level of play throughout the season? I would think would be maybe a little bit of it. But ultimately, fundamentally, as a team, we need to improve as a group defensively. Individually, our players need to get better defensively, and as a team, the structure of the way we play has to improve. And again, I go back to wasn't that we as a staff, and I include management and the coaches in that, wasn't like we didn't address it. We just weren't successful in applying it and getting our players to play, or getting our team to play much better defensively. And as the season went on, you combine a tougher schedule, we start to lose players to injury, and the losses mounted, in particular the ugly losses.
Because of the way things went defensively, would that make you more inclined to look for a coach who has a background in just, is kind of a defensive coach, or kind of somebody who works well in improving defenses?
I'm not, I'm looking, ultimately, I think all good coaches, all successful coaches, whether they're coaching junior hockey, college hockey, any of the top leagues at the top levels around the world, I don't think you necessarily define them in one particular, whether he's a defensive guy, an offensive guy, a player's coach, or a militant coach, whatever. Good coaches adjust, and they do what they have to do with the personnel that they have, and find a way to make it work. And you look at all the top teams in the league right now, they're all a little bit different. They all have their areas that they're really good at, but and areas that here's the reason they may not win, but ultimately they're pretty balanced. And I wouldn't describe any of these top teams in the league today as having he's strictly a defensive minded coach, or he's an offensive minded coach. So again, at the end of the day, good coaches address, know what the needs of their team are, and have certain standards, and try to get their players to play to that. Now, having said all that, I probably should have started right at the beginning. Like, I've worked with Jeff and his staff for 3 years here. And he was here for 4 years as a coach before I got here, and I believe 4 years or 3 years in GR maybe, and 1 year as an assistant. I sit here and say, Jeff Blashill's a good hockey coach. He ran a really good program, and you all recognize like kind of what's I can certainly attest to what's been our program for the last 3 years, because it's been dictated by me under the circumstance where I'm trying to rebuild this team. We're trying to add prospects, add draft picks and whatnot, and in turn we're letting our veterans go as opposed to re-signing them. I say this sincerely, Jeff did an outstanding job of leading this team, this organization, in a very, very difficult circumstance. Pardon the expression, but he ran a good program. This wasn't a complete shit show. We were organized. Our guys practiced hard. And can you imagine, like, you're sitting on that side, having to sit here every day and answer your questions after the games, and say it with dignity, and be supportive and be positive. That's a really hard thing to do. And so I said it after year one. I think I said it after year two. You cannot judge Jeff Blashill on the Detroit Red Wings record. I think you judge it on how he ran this program and conducted himself, and was extremely professional in that. And I think it's really unfair to put it on the coach. Having said that, for 3 years, I'm making a change today for the reasons I stated earlier.
Thanks, Steve.
Ted Colfin.
Hey, Steve. Hey, down in Grand Rapids, what did you think of Jonathan Berggren's season, and how close is he to being NHL ready at this point, Steve?
We're very pleased with the season that Jonathan had. As you know, we left him there the entire season. We decided at the end not to recall him. As an adjustment coming to play in the American Hockey League versus the Swedish Elite League that he played in. There's areas of his game we asked him to focus on and try to improve on, and he did that. And we're very happy with his progress. Does he have a chance to make the team next year? He does have a chance. Is he a lock to make it? I don't think so. Like, honestly, a year ago, I was uncertain as to, I thought Moritz could play in the league. I had no idea what kind of an impact that he would have. And really, with Lucas Raymond at the start of the year, we felt like, he didn't play a lot in the Swedish league last year. We weren't sure he'd be ready. And we were kind of planning that for him not to be ready. And each step of the training camp and preseason, he hung in there and he excelled and he made the team. So I sit here today and I say, hey, I'm not going to pencil Jonathan Berggren into the lineup, but I'm also not going to say, hey, he's destined to play in GR. Let's see how training camp goes. Let's see how the preseason goes, and we'll make a determination at that point. But in the interim, in the off season, I will try to improve our team. And if I can acquire a player that I think is going to help us, I intend to do that. I don't sit here and plan on saying, hey, I'm going to give, prospect A, prospect B, they're getting a spot on the roster. I'm not going to do that.
Well, just one more, and it kind of segues maybe to another kid. How about the Edmondson kid? I mean, do you expect, what kind of season did you feel he had in your eyes? Is he going to get a chance to make the roster, I guess?
I think he's in consideration for it. Yes, he had a very good year. Frölunda's, we've had several players go through there. They're a very good team, very good organization. I played very well for them this year. He's big. He can skate. I say big. He's strong. He can skate really well. He does have a chance. Yeah, I honestly, a real good chance to play in the NHL next year. And again, it's a little, it's a bit of an educated guess based on, like we watch, you watch, okay, this is what Moritz Seider did in the Swedish league last year, kind of compare him to that. Can he have a similar impact? He's a different player than Moritz, really, and both very good young prospects, but a little bit of difference in the two of them, and we'll see how he does. But I'm optimistic, and we'll see.
Appreciate this. Thanks, Steve.
Brad Galley.
Hey, Steve, when you came here, I think one of your first press conferences or media sessions with us, you pointed out how long building a cup winner takes. Tarasenko, almost 8 to 10 years in St. Louis when they finally got the cup. Ovechkin taking as long as he did. Even the job you guys did in Tampa. The next step for this team is what? I imagine you'll sign some guys this offseason, maybe make a deal, but are these jersey holding type of press conferences where you're bringing in sort of elite talent, spending big in the offseason, or trying to trade some of these prospects for players? Can we expect that this offseason?
Brad, I don't intend to trade prospects or at least high draft picks for players. Say, I don't know what the definition of a veteran player would be. Any of our young player, any of our prospects or our picks, our high picks I would only trade it if we were to do that would be for a young player that's going to fit into the timeline of the nucleus of our team with our I guess our older young players being around 25, 26. I want them to be in that to grow with them. So as far as signing players and having the press conference, I don't really know at this point. There's good players that are potentially pending free agents. History has shown that the majority of them re-sign or prior to free agency. And then of the group that's left, you have more than half the league competing for them. So you're lucky to get one, if any. And generally in getting them, you're probably going beyond what you really want to do to get them. So it's difficult. I don't plan for free agency. Like we'll explore free agency and try to get it. But I just find it's a kind of a fruitless effort to say, hey, we're getting this player on July 1, and this is what we're prepared to pay him, and we're going to get him. And half the time you don't even get a chance to make the call because he's already signed.
Thanks for the time.
John Neo.
Hey, Steve, as you come up with a list of candidates and interviews here, I'm wondering how much time do you think you'll spend sort of outside that NHL, AHL pool, the more traditional, I guess. And then along those same lines, I think it's been 20 years since we've had a European head coach. Do you think whatever obstacles that have been there maybe are less so these days with the way things have changed with the NHL?
I don't know what obstacles necessarily you're referring to. I would say at this
or reluctance, I guess I should say. I don't know. Yeah, it just hasn't happened.
Doesn't happen. Yeah, for whatever reasons, I'm not really sure.
Right.
I would say at this stage, John, I'm not gonna, and I don't have a list yet. And I'm gonna put I've got a few names kind of bouncing around in my head, and I've been a busy couple of days here. So at this stage, I'm not going to restrict my search or my long list to any particular criteria as he has to be a head coach, he has to have NHL experience, he this or that. I'm just going to put a long list of names together from the people that I talk to, from articles that are written with names that come up that maybe that any of you know that I'm not familiar with or that I hadn't thought of, and write them all down and do my own background work on them all, and then put together a shorter list of guys that I, for various reasons, that I think I really want to talk to, and we'll go from there. But I'm not going to today kind of restrict it to any particular like tight, narrow set of requirements, I guess, or experiences, or lack of experience for that matter.
And from what you just said, it sounds like you don't really have a short timetable here necessarily. I mean, do you have one in your head where you'd like to have this done by a certain date?
I really don't have a date for you. I'd say I'd rather do this sooner than later, but it's not happening tomorrow, and hopefully it's done before the first day of training camp.
Thanks, Steve.
Bob Duff.
This is kind of similar to John's first question there, but you look around the league, you look at Toronto, Tampa Bay, Florida, and just a few that come to mind. They all have guys, it's their first NHL job, and they're all teams that could legitimately win the Stanley Cup. You've hired 2 coaches in Tampa, and neither of them had a previous NHL experience. It seems like that's less, less, I don't know what the word is, necessity is maybe. It seems like teams are more open to that. Am I reading that wrong, or is it just coincidence?
Yeah, honestly, I guess I don't really know. You look at, you mentioned like Jared Bednar in Colorado. I think it was Jared was in the minors working with him. I think the Avalanche were his first NHL experience. It kind of goes, I think, a little bit in cycles, maybe over time, that there's a group of coaches that work within the league for a certain period of time, and then a new group kind of comes along, a little bit like starting goaltenders, maybe, for that matter. That you get a group that come in and establish themselves and are there for a long time. But I don't have any. I think we're just making a mistake if we limit ourselves to a specific criteria. And just because a guy's worked in the league doesn't entitle him to the right to get another job. And likewise, we shouldn't exclude these young minds that, whether it's a Sheldon Keefe or, say John Cooper. I had the good fortune of working with John he was our coach in the minors for the better part of 3 years. So having gone from Guy Boucher, who was first year in the league, first head coaching job, to a second coach with the first time, my comfort was in, I knew the guy, I'd worked with the guy, and to my, what limited experience I had or expertise that I had was like, I'm confident he'll do a good job in this role. So, again, I think, I can't speak for why, Joe decided to go with Jared or Kyle decided to go with Sheldon, but they both worked with them within their organization and had a certain comfort level with promoting them and confidence in them that they would be ready to do that job.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're going into this with an open mind and a clean slate, and hoping to find the guy who's going to wow you and say, this is our guy.
I'm not specifically looking for a guy with no experience, and
you're not looking for a specific type, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. No, I'm really not. And what I'd like to kind of reveal a little more than I really care to, I find it difficult to really, you hire people that you don't really know, that you haven't worked with, or somebody that you've really worked closely with and knows kind of the way I want things done or the way I do things. That's a bit of a challenge. And I'm going to see that, going to have to overcome that. And obviously this is an important decision for us. And I'm hoping to make obviously a good decision. So, but I don't want to rule anything out or exclude anyone or anybody because they have coached or because they haven't coached or they've not been in North America or whatnot. So I'm trying to say as much as possible and actually say nothing if you haven't figured that out right now.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Larry Lage.
Hi, Steve. I think we picked up on that. You mentioned a few names bouncing around your head. Would Mike Babcock be one of them?
I would say to you, I don't think it would be appropriate to comment on or give you an idea of anybody that might be on my list. Again, it's we made a change 2 days ago. The last 2 days we got players that are leaving for the World Championships and come and go. I'm trying to wrap up end of the year things and I'm going to look at everybody but I will not comment on any specific name in general, whether I have interest or don't.
Art Regner.
Hi, Steve.
Art, how are you?
I am doing well, thank you. I guess I'm not trying to pin you down either, and it is rest assuring that you hope to have a coach in place by training camp. But would you really seriously like to have the coach in place by the NHL draft? I mean, try to put some sort of timeline on it?
Yeah, well, I by the draft before free agency. Again, I like sooner than later. Like I don't foresee this going much beyond the end of the finals, and please don't read into that as meaning anything. But once we're getting close to the draft, you really want to focus on the draft, and then as soon as the draft ends, you're right into free agency. So I'd prefer to have, to the extent that it's possible, have the coach in place prior to the draft, as just for the process of what we need to do in the off season.
I know Grand Rapids, I think we all do, that Grand Rapids is essential in the development and for the Red Wings organization. Are you evaluating their coaching staff? Are you going to try to reorganize maybe the entire organization this offseason, or are you happy with what's going on in GR?
I'm pleased with the coaching staff in Grand Rapids. This has been maybe even more so in the American League than the NHL. It's been really challenging to run a program with taxi squads and COVID restrictions and things like that, travel restrictions. Ben and his staff in GR have done a fantastic job. I'm really happy with that, and I don't foresee any changes there.
How about your own unrestricted free agents? I know everything comes at a whirlwind now for you, but are you planning on offering some guys, or are you going to let them all know exactly what your plans are?
A little bit of everything. Like every player's situation is a little bit unique to them and our needs. So I will, the last 2 days I've really had a chance to meet with the players that are whether they're going to the World Championships or in a hurry to go to their off-season home for various reasons. Met with them. Some of the older guys have, the reality is they have kids in school. They're not in a hurry to leave. And so I will meet with them, and some of them happen to be some of our unrestricted free agents. And even we've got a couple of restricted free agents that I've got to make decisions on as well. So I plan on meeting with them and telling them what I know at this point and what and being honest. And in some cases that is simply, I need to wait. I'm not going to make a decision one way or the other until I'm ready to make that decision. And that's kind of a case for a couple of our guys at the position they were in at this time last year as well, that I need to wait. And I'll, if I can offer you something, I will. And if I can, I'll let you know as soon as I know. And in some cases we're able to bring guys back, and in others we opted not to, or they opted to go.
And one final question. And I know most of us on this Zoom call have worked with Jeff for a number of years and know that he is a top-notch, decent man and treats everybody with dignity and respect, as you have alluded to. I'm kind of curious. I mean, you have to make tough decisions in your role, and and this is a hockey decision. But how does that wear on you from a personal, it's probably is this the most difficult aspect of your job in a way is to tell whether it be a coach or a player that it's time to part ways.
Yeah. I honestly don't enjoy it. Nobody likes to deliver bad news or to tell a player, I'm not offering you a contract. Even trading players is, you feel bad at times. I feel terrible at times. You got guys that are their wives are pregnant, 7 months pregnant, and you're trading them. Like it's hard on the players. But when I wanted to become a general manager, I knew what I was getting into. I knew that, you got to make difficult decisions. You got to have uncomfortable conversations. Do I enjoy them? No, I don't enjoy them. And I hope I never enjoy them. But it's part of the job and it's what we kind of sign up for. And, you just have to do it. And like I said, I was aware of what I was getting into. At least I thought I did. And then once you're in it, you're like, ooh, but it is part of the job and you have to do that. And we all accept it. And whether you're a manager, a coach, a player, anybody, we all at times, we have to deliver bad news. And at times we all have to hear the bad news too.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Mike Stone.
Hey, Steve, the goaltending kind of mirrored the way this team went. It was pretty good early and then went down. Can you talk about your feelings on the goaltending situation and how close is Sebastian Cossa from being in the NHL?
Well, I'll start with Sebastian. He's a 19-year-old playing in junior hockey in Western Canada. He's had a pretty good year. Is he ready to play in the NHL next year? I would say today, I'd have to say no. I think he's a ways away. To manage the expectation of him. He's on a very good team at Edmonton in the Western League. I'm following their playoffs closely for the most part. He's had a pretty good year. He's had a pretty good start to the playoffs. Selfishly, I'm hoping his team goes very far. That would be great for him. Great experience for him. Where he plays next year, we won't determine that until the off season. So I don't expect him to see him at the NHL level next year at all. And to what extent, when, I really have no idea at this point, but he's a good young prospect. That's a tough position, as we all know, excuse me. And not that I want to rush anybody. I'm definitely not, going to, rush a goaltender. I'm just going to let his play determine at which level he'll play at, even next year for that matter. Our goaltending in Detroit, I actually had a chance to meet with Alex today. He's off to the World Championships for the U.S. And my words to him were, it was an up and down year. He at times had great games. He had some not so great games. Some of that was due to our overall team play. What I really encouraged by, this could have been, a tough situation for any goalie, particularly a young guy who's, doesn't have a ton of experience. He survived it, and he's not a basket case today, that I think it showed his mental toughness, and it's good for him in that he battled the ups and downs. He didn't get too carried away with things when they went well for him. And there was some tough nights out there, and it was hard for him to get in there, and he had to go back in the next night and stop pucks, and through it all, he survived. And a particularly tough stretch for our entire team there, maybe in February, early March, and got through it and played several good games after it. So at the end of the year, I think it was a positive year for him. Thomas Greiss, again, had his ups and downs and played really well at times. How much of it I can pin on goaltending, versus our own team play? Maybe a little bit of both, but again, it's an area we need to be better in, and whether it's keeping the same guys or we go and look out for somebody else, try to improve it. We'll see if we can do that as well.
One final thing, hindsight's always 2020. Do you, regret maybe not making the coaching change after last year? The pool of candidates for would have been different to be head coaches.
Stoney, no, I don't, honestly. I was comfortable with the decision. I've actually had a chance to reflect on that in the last 2 weeks, and I'm like, what? I had my reasons for making that decision last year, and I look back on them and reflect on them, and I'm totally comfortable with that decision that I made. And, I sit here today, I had my reasons. I'm comfortable with them, and we make this decision now and we move forward. I've made a lot of decisions over the course of my managerial career, I guess. And we always look back and you second guess yourself and all that. I'm getting, a little bit better at make your decision, move on. You got other things to worry about. Don't waste time worrying about the past. Reflect on it, learn from it. But again, I believe for the reasons I did last year, I'm comfortable with that. And even regardless of how this year went, if you'd have told me how it would have went, I'm comfortable with what I did last year.
Thank you.
Kevin Allen.
Yeah, Steve, you already addressed Edmondson and Berggren, but I wondered what your thoughts were. You had 2 or 3 players that also played well in Europe, Vero, Johansson, Soderstrom. Have you made any decisions about whether you'll bring them over next year or will you continue to keep them over there?
Elmer isn't signed to a contract yet. I had a chance to run into his agent last week while I was in Germany at the U18s. Had a brief, just an informal chat that we both have a mutual interest in trying to come to some sort of contractual agreement. We would, all 3 of the players you mentioned, we would like to bring them over to play in North America next year. Whether that's whether they make the Detroit Red Wings or play in the American Hockey League remains to be seen. But we're very excited about having all 3 of them in our system and closer to as I think they're all roughly 21, 22 or 20 years old right now. I'm trying to think which years they were drafted, 20 and older. They have a chance to be NHLers. And is that in the fall? I'm not sure yet, but we would hope to bring all 3 over. But first things first, Elmer's with the Swedish national team, I think right now. I know he is right now, and I'm hoping he makes their roster for the World Championships. Emil had a very good year in Finland, and Albert is in the finals with Färjestad playing Luleå, I think right now. I think game 2 is today. I'm not sure if that game ended already. It probably has ended, but playing very well. And so we're encouraged to get them all over here. But number one, hopefully we can work out a contract with Elmer and then decide on what's the right thing to do. But we would like to bring them over. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of Elmer, every day it seems like there's another highlight goal. Would it be fair to say he's been the biggest surprise given where he was drafted? I mean, he's really sort of come on, especially this season.
Yeah, I think last year he really started to, everybody started to catch his eye. We have Nicholas Cronwall over there, Danny Cleary, and prior to his new role, Sean Horkoff these guys are pretty heavily involved with the kids. They stay on top of it. They communicate with them on a regular basis. So even going back to last year, the staff was pretty aware that he was really starting to make strides and come along. And, this year now we get to see on Twitter or Instagram some of the spectacular goals, even the one he scored, I think yesterday, the day before. They're pretty fun to watch. It's pretty encouraging. Is he a huge surprise for us at this point? Based on what he's done over the last couple of years, his progress, we're pretty excited about it. It sure is a pleasant surprise, but we've said, we need some surprises within our drafts. We can't just expect to pick in the top 10 every year, get a good player. It's going to take a long time to build a team that way, that we need some of these players that are 2nd through 7th rounders to make it. They're not all going to make it, but looks like he's got a good opportunity. He's real. Again, you see the highlights. You may have seen some of his games, but he's a really good athlete. He's a big young man, but he's very, very athletic, and his jumping ability, his coordination and whatnot. And that bodes well for the future. And generally the kind of maybe an unscientific rule seems to be the guys that are bigger, that it takes them a little bit longer to kind of grow into their body, so to speak. And he looks to be doing that. But I remember when we had him over here 2 years ago in training camp, and we do some fitness tests, and it was pretty exciting to see where he was at. It wasn't like, when this guy gets strong or when this guy gets powerful. It was like, he's already powerful and he's already explosive. Can you imagine, as he continues to work at it, where the potential is here? So I don't want to overhype him, and I'm not trying to overhype him, but we're cautiously optimistic that he'll be, a real good NHLer.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Bob Winowski.
Hey there, Steve. looking at your roster, obviously you added Sider and Raymond, and they certainly look like foundational pieces going forward. How many foundational pieces do you think you're certain you have on the roster right now that will be here when it's time to win and through? And how many does a really good NHL team need, do you think?
Well, Joe, those are really good questions, and I don't have really good answers for them. I don't know how many foundational pieces you need. You need a bunch of good players to win. Whether, like the salary cap kind of dictates, how many you can afford, I guess, and how you allocate that depends on your own preference. And really it depends on what stage of their career they're at. I'd prefer not to speculate. I'd have to give it some thought, first of all, as to what we have within our system, how many foundational, players or pieces we have. And on our team, I'd rather not even go there because honestly, I'm not even I'm not sure. Like guys' career trajectories go in different directions, and I hope a lot of them, because I like these guys. They're good guys, they're trying hard, they're working hard. It's a good group, and as I'm hoping we can be more successful sooner than later, because as you're around your team and around your players, you get to know them, you really grow fond of them. And the guys you're not fond of, honestly, you get rid of them. So for various reasons, but so again, I don't know the exact number. And I don't even want to kind of throw out it's this or that. So
just a real quick follow-up. You said this move doesn't indicate a shift in expectations, raise them or whatever. What about impatience level? And is it tempting or is it tempting to get impatient and try to accelerate things?
Not really. What the danger becomes you start to get a little maybe impatient. I don't know, desperate. I'm not sure what the right word is. And then you do something stupid, and I don't need any help doing anything stupid. Like I'll probably do it without any. So the fewer times I can do that, but again, when you try to really anytime I've tried to force something, force a trade, force a signing, I've kind of regretted it for different reasons. So I think you just have to remain patient. Quite frankly, I think it'll be easier for me to be patient than it will for yourself. Like you're going to want to see results, want to see it. And I understand it. And up for me, for me, I've got to show some improvement. I can't sit here forever saying, hey, be patient, everybody. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. I believe we're starting to, we're showing some improvement. Although you were to say, Steve, I watch a team. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I see it from a different perspective, and that we've got a prospect pool that's growing in the 3 years that I've been here. We're moving some of these prospects into our lineup. Some of the kids, even the Michael Rasmussen, say that were drafted prior to me, are coming here, are moving up the depth chart, moving, playing bigger roles. So there is some progress, albeit very slowly. But again, I've just found when I've really tried to force something, not necessarily rush it, but try to force it, try to do something to speed things up or whatnot, it hasn't worked as well as I would hope. So try to, even with, trade, trying to force a trade, trying to force a free agent signing. I really want this guy. I'm going to get him at all costs. It generally doesn't work out for the better. I think you really have to remain disciplined and wait for the right opportunities.
We're only asking for 5 free agent signings this offseason. So,
well, you may get 5. You might not like any of them, but you might get 5.
Okay. Thanks.
Last question, Carlos Monterez.
Yeah, Steve, you've hired 2 coaches with varying degrees or different degrees of success. What did you learn about the process that you went through in hiring those 2 coaches?
Carlos, they were I hired Guy Boucher when I was first hired in Tampa. And I didn't know Guy. I knew of Guy Boucher. I had met him before. I didn't know him. I hadn't worked with him. But again, as I'd said earlier, and when I hired John, I'd worked with John for 3 years. What I have generally found, and by no means am I restricting myself or limiting myself to just hiring somebody that I know, but I've found, it's harder it's harder to hire someone that you don't know or you haven't worked with, because you're kind of it's a little bit of an educated guess, and but what I did like, it was interesting. I won't go into the other people that I interviewed, but I interviewed ultimately three people seriously for the job when I hired Guy Boucher, and 3 outstanding interviews. And I walked away going like, geez, honestly, I'd be happy with any of the 3 of these guys. And they had very varying degrees of experience and completely different backgrounds. And ultimately I chose, and I don't look back on the decision and regretting it, but I learned, like, don't limit yourself to a specific criteria. And I guess I talked about that a little bit earlier. Don't say he has to have head coaching experience. Don't say he has to, have coached in the NHL. I really think, you do your homework on the people, you look at their track record, where they've been as a player, where they've been as a coach. I try to talk to a lot of people that have worked with them, that know me and kind of know my personality and the way I work, and see if there's a potential for there to be a fit. But it really can be challenging, I think, when you're hiring. Maybe that goes for all walks of business or sports and whatnot. That it can be tough when you don't know people. And so I guess ultimately what I've learned is don't limit yourself to any specific requirements for the job, and I guess that would be the answer to your question.
And just as a follow-up, do you have full access? Sorry about that. It's my bird chirping. Do you have full access to Chris Ilitch's checkbook to hire anybody you want, even your dream hire?
I guess I haven't asked him that question specifically, but Chris has always given me the guidance to, Steve, you're the general manager of the team. You make the decisions that a general manager is hired to do, and he will be supportive. I think, in fairness to him, if I'm breaking the bank, so to speak, I think I owe him the respect to run. And regardless, Chris is very passionate about the team and follows it intently. I just think it's wise on my part to, as I go through the process, keep him updated on what I'm doing. But he has, from day one, has given me full support in whatever direction I wanted to go, and has really been helpful in asking me and very pointed questions, important questions to force me to kind of think about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And so anyway, I think it's safe to say, like, Chris, he wants to win. He wants to do things the right way, and is fully supportive. And he and the Detroit Red Wing organization are prepared to do whatever they have to do, whatever he has to do for us to win. We're not going to be restricted by anything. Having said that, I don't have the green light to go out and be foolish either.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
All right. Those are all the questions we had today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.